Yeah, welcome. Thank you for listening to me drink. I was just doing some research on this crazy thing that I'm doing right now, and I wanted to touch on a couple of things that are very interesting about our senses. People kind of get that we have many different senses. I hope that you can hear me okay. People get that we have many different senses, right? But we usually cloak them into five categories: sight, taste, smell, touch, hearing. And I got them all without repeating any of them that time. Yeah. I hope anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm going through this idea, and I'm going to do a video about the idea, and this is one of the parts of the video that I'm doing at the moment, so I'm going to do some stuff in the background here at the same time. But fascinatingly, what I wanted to talk about was, in particular, how we have this group of tools that are designed to pick up and decode certain aspects of our reality that are then given to us for us to then project into an experience. So we take information, we take it inside, we jumble it around, and then we project an internal representation of that external detection. So what we see and experience is not actually inherently there, okay? The idea here being, hello, hope you can hear me. The idea being, very simply put, that we can't kind of see, touch, taste, figure out reality. This gets really interesting. Hey, Miriam. This gets really interesting very quickly because let's take sight. Everyone knows sight pretty well. Photons of light. This, light, right? Wow, it's very glow based right now. Light is based around the measurements of 420 to 750 terahertz, which is approximately tens, thousands, millions, billions, trillions. So it's a trillion range frequency band that we're talking about here, and that's our sight, which is then broken down into 7 parts which blend into one another, so it's not cut and paste nice and block type stuff. This is spectrum sort of stuff, so we come out with the rainbow, the visible light spectrum. That visible light spectrum is really easy to understand because it's one thing broken down into 7 things. Yep, get ready. Kansas is about to go bye-bye, okay? Look at our touch, right? So if we detect our environment with touch, and I'm touching a frequency here, what is that? Well, this is what we get into when we talk about the other senses that we generally don't like to talk about in our culture. Our touch is actually a collection of senses. It is mechanoreceptors, photoreceptors, temperature receptors, as well as a fourth one. So our touch is detecting 4 different frequency bands and blending it together into one sensory experience. Very quickly you can go, okay, well that's hard, mechano, and it's cold because it doesn't have an internal heat source, so it's temperate. There's 2 parts of my touch right there. But what about the other 2? Well, I can't remember the 4th, but you get my point. The smell, olfactory, that's really fascinating, talking about that one. So sound is another really easy one. Sound hearing takes place between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz, and that's at the peak performance of the human. That's okay. That's peak performance. So ideally a perfect baby is born with 20 to 20,000 give or take fluctuations within circumstantial differences in pregnancy, all the things that come into a life. If you're born with complete hearing, they say as soon as you start life, the edges of your hearing bands come together until you reach old age, where the receptors in your ears, the hairs and other bits and pieces, the drum, they all start to wear and tear over a period of time, declining the edges of the frequency bands into more common sounds. So you lose the ability to sound higher frequencies, lower frequencies, or smaller noises, not smaller, but lower, deeper noises versus higher pitched noises, and they lose their edges. So sound, sight, they're pretty easy to understand. Touch, we've touched on. Olfactory and taste. Okay, so smell and taste. Taste is that there's a lot of receptors on our tongue. We all know this, but it's again not one that we really think about. How many different taste buds are on your tongue? Actually, I don't know. I haven't Googled it. I don't use Google. It's just the terminology that we use in our society. But I haven't searched for the specifics on it, and that's the next one that I'm doing. But I was so stoked with what I was reading about touch and smell that I wanted to jump on and cut my research short from taste. But taste is something that's broken down into 5 categories. We know this because of the 5 different tastes, right? Sweet, I'm not even going to remember them. Sweet, savory, chili and hot is not a taste. That's actually a sensation. Touch, right? Sweet, salty, savory. I can't even remember the 5 different tastes. You know what they are. Everybody knows what they are. Sour, that's another one. Thank you. There's one more as well. It'll come up sooner or later. Those 5 different tastes are kind of like, again, taking the shape of what we consider to be visible light. It's something salty. I think I said that. 5 different tastes. Teo, do you remember the 5 different tastes? Hey. Salty, savory, sweet, sour, and sugar. No, that's sweet. Yeah, whatever. That 5th one, anyway. It's there. I'm just gonna have a quick drink. So, whatever that 5th one is, that's our taste. Now, the olfactory I wanted to touch on very quickly was it's chaotically double, right? So where you have kind of like the similarity of your tongue, where you have all of these different receptors, well, your nose has all of these different receptors, and including all through your nasal passage, all the way up through the back here. And each one of them, including the hairs, all come into play with how the frequencies are taken in and then absorbed. Now, I found this fascinating because one of the ones that confuses a lot of people is why do almonds, or why does cyanide smell like almonds, right? So if we detect physical matter using our sense of smell, then how is it that we can confuse one piece of matter for another piece of matter? And it's not like they're very similar. It's not like this is almond from this tree and almond from this tree, 2 different almond trees, say for instance. So it's not like they're close together. These things are like far apart, and yet we experience them. Our body codes for the experience to be the same. So what is the similarity here? If we were detecting the physical matter, the particle parts, which I had always thought that our smells were the registration of the chemicals that we intake within our smell. And so whatever we're smelling is not a smell, it's actually a wave of chemicals or a wave of information. Each one of the receptors within your smell and your olfactory system is doubly encoded though. So it not only detects all of these different things and then cross matches them against one another. Okay, this is not like saying, oh, it's on or off. This is like saying, oh, this is 1,000,000,001 and this is 1,000,000,002, and that's two completely different realities. You know, there's huge variations within our within our sense of smell, and I forget what I was going to finish with. Oh, that's right. The thing about the chemical. Yeah, well, there'll be more. I'm actually doing up a pretty big thing at the moment, but I'll keep you posted about it, Miriam, and when it comes out. But the idea being that because of the fact that we don't detect actual chemicals with our sense of smell, we detect frequency bands. We can mismatch the frequencies of one thing with another thing, and that's the reason why they suspect. It's hard to get concrete evidence in any form of science, and anyone who turns around and says the science is settled on this is not talking about science. So it's kind of really empirically apparent that we're not detecting the chemical bodies using our sense of smell. Scientists and researchers suggest that we're detecting the frequency of the chemical body. That our nose is actually more like our ear rather than our mouth. We think of our mouth as taking in physical chemicals and biomaterial, right? We usually think of our nose as very similar, but our ears are completely different. They're usually associated with our eyes, right? These two detect like energies and space. These two detect like matter and interact with matter, right? And so it's this one. But this one is actually more akin to listening to the frequency of smells rather than the chemicals of smells, which I found extremely fascinating. Yeah, and that's legitimately her, okay? Somebody's internal smell is a very interesting concept, and it's one that has a lot of arguments brought about it because we have this smell that people can detect, children detect it in parents, but it's not like the smell of musk or the smell of rose. It's not a external chemical that is entering into your nose. It's more like an internal recognition of data that comes together to create this experience of smell that we have. Yeah, it is. Everything about this freaking reality is fascinating. It really is. If you're not fascinated by it, you're looking at it from the wrong direction, basically. So I'll keep working with my crazy little thing that I've got going on here, even though you might not know what I'm doing. But yeah, hope you enjoyed my little ramblings about the limitations of our senses and my entertaining mannerisms, we'll say. See you next time. Yeah, it is. Yep. Yeah, and that's one of the ones. Temperature, all of these different senses are energies that we detect rather than that are present. So the present thing is the one that brings forward the manifestation of that physical experience, and that's what we call sensory perception, is the interpretation of that otherwise data or information. Radio. Ciao.